everybody. Welcome back. So our next session, I think, is going to be quite a popular one, using event tech to increase exhibition sales revenue. So anybody who has any responsibility for bottom line will be very interested to be here. I've got a great panel with me today, and we're going to run through sales strategy, event tech, and how technology can be used to really improve sales processes. And it's not just seen as a nice visitor add-on or to improve the visitor experience, it actually can improve your business. So before we start, I think we'll just run through the panel. Matt, if you'd like to kick off and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. I'm Matt Wilson, the Sales and Marketing Director for D2I Systems. We're the producers of the Engage event management platform that won Best Sales Technology yesterday evening.
Nice
little plug there. I used to work as an organizer before I came over to the supplier world, working for UBM, Tarsus and Informa.
Hello, I'm Tomson-Smith, CEO from Eagleview. What we do is, in essence, we do data integration and visualization. So we take data from multiple different data sources for organisers, pull that information together and enable the right people at the right time to get access to that information so they can make more actionable insights during the event.
Hi guys, morning. My name is Steve Olesansky. I am the CTO of Showshopa. Showshopa is a platform which is white labeled and it's designed for event organizers to engage consumers and exhibitors under the events brand all year long.
And good morning, everybody. My name is Adam Gardner. I currently work for Freeman. I'm digital business development there, working on the show plan suite of solutions. So prior to Freeman, much like Matt, I was an organiser. I worked for Messe Frankfurt UK on Auto Mechanica Birmingham, part of the team that brought that over to the UK, was a sales manager there.
Fantastic. So we sat down yesterday and sort of ran through this a bit, and I think we could talk in this in lots of different angles, and really, we could talk about this all day, really. But I think one of the things that we agreed on was to sort of go through the linear process. So let's start at the beginning. How can tech enable the sales teams based in the actual office, and how can you improve that process to really, really improve your bottom line of revenue? So, Matt, sorry, you again, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll kick everything off.
On that?
So my thoughts are, we're going from the linear starting point, and the main thing that we kind of see is data. That's probably quite a generic and probably boring response, but actually it needs to be said because the more organisers I go to see still haven't got their data right. And they haven't got their sales technology right either. They're working with great sales teams that are normally given a sales platform that's not actually made for the events market. And there's a big problem with that because you can't actually do everything that you need to do as an exhibition salesperson within a generic bit of software. And that means you stop using that software. And when you stop using it, all the data, all the intelligence that a sales team will collect, that they can actually disseminate across the whole business to start improving their yield and seeing trends to either launch new shows or new areas, isn't there. And that's a huge problem in our industry. And really the first thing, if you're to get your data and your systems right, is to lift the iron curtain really between the sales department and the marketing department. And that's a big thing, because that data that's really useful to help you leverage a close of a deal isn't actually always there and readily available for sales teams, and that's a criminal thing, really. So that's the first place we'd start off.
So Adam, you've been at the coalface, you've been a sales manager, and you've been doing your phone calls. I mean, a lot of sales teams are still based on the 40, 50, 60 calls a day, KPIs. I mean, can tech really improve that? Is that, that traditional sales technique, is that working, and how can tech help that?
Yeah, most definitely. I think the first thing is the old analogy: if it's not broke, don't try and fix it. So KPIs have a place, phone calls have a place, but it's the problem with sales in generic, when you're targeting particularly teams with things like how many phone calls they've got to make, they end up making for the sake of making them. So actually it's trying to empower your teams and giving them as Matt mentioned, the data, but not just data, information that's tangible. They can use it to take 40 phone calls down to 30 productive phone calls that help them close the business. And the thing with sales, it's, in general, sales teams just want to sell. They get into sales because they enjoy doing it. So it's trying to make the whole process for them as simple. My own experience, if stuff was complicated, you'd end up leaving it and moving to the easier things. And sales is no different from anything else, and that's what they want. So you need a system in place that makes their life easy, that empowers them to do the job that they want to do in a manner that is correct. So from the wider perspective, they're representing themselves, they're representing the organizer and the event in the correct manner, because they're able to do their ability without having to go through loads of different processes to get there.
I'd say that we live in a world today where you buy from Amazon. Someone mentioned it yesterday, I think it was Stefan Fasai. We're used to, as consumers, just buying something on an app, and it's a really easy sales process. But when it comes to being on site, being at a show and going through that process, we often are a bit mean to our exhibitors, would you say? They're on site, the sales team don't often have all the information to hand. They don't know they're there, they're at the coalface, they're talking to the client, and they've got to go off to see a contractor, or they've got to go here, they've got to go there, which does affect the sales journey and the sales process. Ian, do you have insight into that information on that?
Yeah, what we say is we try and take data. I think data's a key theme here. We try and take data and make it into information, because data per se is worthless. You need to be able to put that data into a context of how to use it. And once you have information, you can then turn that into actionable insight. So we see the fact that you can empower salespeople to get access to information at the right times. That enables them to have much more informed decisions, intelligent decisions. That enables people to set expectations, because the key thing, I think, that hurts sales revenue is churn. So if you can have your salespeople having intelligent conversations before an event, they can then set the expectations of those exhibitors, so that when they turn up to an event, they actually have a successful event, because they've achieved what they expect to achieve. So it's before the event, during the event, enabling those salespeople to have the right information, and after the event, when you can enable people to understand, the sales team to understand what has happened, they can have much more informed decisions with those people to get them to rebook.
So in order to increase the exhibitor retention, really, it's about customer service, would you say? It's about...
Yeah, it's about not phoning up an exhibitor and say, how did you do? Do you want to rebook? It's phoning up an exhibitor and saying, I see that you had 120% more leads than your competitors. You did really well. Maybe we could look at... And then there's an informed decision which enables that rebooking and that sale.
And what about once the exhibitor's on board? What sort of tech can we have that's outside? Everyone's looking to make their show 365. They want to make revenue 365. How do we do that? Is that really realistic? Steve, what do you do at Showshopper to help people do that?
Well, in Showshopper, we actually focus on the engagement outside of the event. So organizers usually spend a lot of time, effort, and resources to build up the brand, to launch the event, and then repeat the cycle. And somewhere outside of the event, the connections are usually lost between the exhibitors, as I mentioned, the churn, or even with the attendees, whether they are delegates or consumers. So what we are focusing on is having a year-long engagement between the exhibitors, between the consumers or delegates, while the whole experience is governed by a brand.
So you're on site, you've improved your churn, your exhibitors are happy, everything's going really well. What is it that you think that that organisers are missing out on? What's the biggest thing that we're missing out on opportunity in terms of sales? What do you think would really, really improve the sales going forward? Is it just information? Is it just data? Is there anything that you think, little tricks that you see people doing incorrectly, or what do you think it might be? Share your knowledge, share your wealth.
I think what do people do wrong? There's endless things I've probably done wrong over the years. I think the key thing actually for a lot of sales teams now is actually get out of the mindset of being a salesperson and get into the mindset of being an account manager. They are typically, when you're organising an event, you need to get, if you get an exhibitor to be there three concurrent years, you basically got them for life, nigh on anything. So you're spending a lot of time with these people, and it's getting into their psyche of what they want to achieve from their event, using the information that you've garnered from previous events and that data that you've pulled to actually support their targets and what they want to achieve. Also using that data to help increase your own yield and your own revenue, because if you've got the data that supports that a similar company had X size stand and they had this many leads and they were doing this, then it makes that conversation with your current client a lot easier to increase the stand size. And ultimately that's what exhibitions are about. It's about selling space. And from the most, I mean, there's lots of things, but let's real cut to the chase. You're selling exhibition space, and that's what you're in the business to do. So you need to be an account manager, and that was a big thing that it was kind of drilled to us, that, you know, build these relationships with people. Don't just see them as a number, build the relationship. Goes back to thinking about the phone calls and the KPIs. Spend that time, get the information and work with them. But as I say, they need, at the same time, to do that, they need the tech as team members to support their ability to do that.
Cool. I'm going to take a slightly different slant on that. So I think that we should really be using event technology to become sales animals, because actually we're in business, and let's not muck around here. The account management is great for yield, but what's going to keep your show alive and kicking and well and healthy is actually finding new areas, new trends, and using the data that's actually captured throughout the whole event cycle to identify how you can go and close that deal. So I'll give you an example. You're capturing good information in pre-reg, you're selling to exhibitors and capturing information about what they're looking to sell. And then if you're really clever, and imagine a world where you could do this, you've then got lead capture on site, where if you wanted to, your sales team could have live feeds of exactly what's being captured, what the behavior, not what pre-reg is, the actual behavior is on the sales floor. And you're using that to leverage deals. And also, going back to churn here, no one likes to lose business. It costs a lot of money to win clients. So what's really good is if you've got a show, and imagine this world, where you can see how your clients are doing with their leads, and rather than having sales teams run away from them and hide, which I see far too often, that's a sales opportunity there. Every problem's a sales opportunity. So you know what? If they're not getting their leads, and they should be, and you know why they're there, go and sell them an email push. Go and sell them some sponsorship. That's what that live data can do. That's how you can get more revenue and keep them on board.
And I think that's exactly what we have been trying to do and delivering to events, that enablement of the sales teams during an event to actually understand how an exhibitor is doing, so that you can say, well, okay, these 10% are not doing very well compared to last year. These 10% are doing really well. Let's focus in on the middle, the waverers. These guys haven't done very well this morning. Why is that? Let's approach that. And as you say, the difficult decisions need to be had and not run away from. And so we can actually see some real in-flight during the event, increases in sales teams being able to sell not only rebooking but additional services, because they have that intelligence, because they have that real-time understanding. And they've also, hopefully, mapped expectations correctly before the event. So when the exhibitor turns up, they're not expecting 100,000 leads. They're not expecting to generate £1 million worth of revenue in the first day, so that they understand what it is that they're going to get out of the event. Because I think that's a real key thing. So you need to work with them, as we touched on before, not just during the event, but before, during and after.
Being at the show this year, it's very apparent that we're not just talking about the visitor experience anymore. When we first started in event tech, it was lots of apps and improving the visitors moving around the show. It's actually lots more sales. Steve, you mentioned that you had quite a few people coming up to your stand with the sales in mind, really.
Yeah, I think one important thing is that data is fun, information is very important, but at the end of the day, if we are talking about churn, then we're really talking about losing a relationship with our customer, right? In this case, our exhibitor. So I think there is a fine balance between approaching the relationship purely as a data-driven relationships and approaching them from completely human perspective, right? Because those relationships are not very scalable. So I think finding the right balance and building the relationship with the exhibitor needs to be both on the data side, because giving them the data information to help them make a decision, but at the same time bringing the salespeople on the floor, letting them to actually have a conversations which are not sales conversations. Simply, everybody knows the difference between trying to sell something and having a conversation when you are trying to find out more about your customers without the intention to immediately sell them something. So I think this was also our experience throughout yesterday and early today when visitors came and they wondered about how they can make their interactions differently, how they can engage their consumers or exhibitors differently, and I think it pretty much is coming down to using data and information as well as the human connection in kind of fine balance.
So one of the questions I asked yesterday, why event tech? Why should we use a system that's designed specifically over tech rather than something like a Salesforce or anything like that? I think Adestra is one of those. But why should we employ? What's great about event tech specifically?
Because it's all about believing in the tools you're given. And if you're using something that's not made specifically for our industry, which, if we're honest, is a little bit of a unique thing, should we say, no one uses it properly. They maybe use 95% of it at first, and of course they work 5% outside the system. And then the next year, they get a little bit lazier. As Adam very rightly said, water goes the easiest way, and then they'll use a spreadsheet. They won't put the information in. They'll only put the contact record in for someone once they've sold something. That's because generic systems aren't set up for the event tech world. If you use a really good CRM and a good sales lead management system that's made for our industry, your sales teams can work within it all the time, and that means you get all the benefit. I mean, we're talking marketing people here. They miss out on a trick. Those sales teams are speaking to exhibitors really for a very long time, and the marketing teams only really get to garner information around pre-reg and post-sale. But those guys are out on the front line, always speaking to the market, and they're going to pick up on the trends earlier. And that's the benefit of having everyone working in the system. The minute it doesn't work for our industry, you're toast. It's gone.
I would probably add from our own personal experience that when we started to build our platform, we built it with the consumer or the attendee in mind as well as the exhibitor. And we focused on the experience and the relationship between them. And when we actually ran the first trials, we realized that we completely missed the values and the important parts for the event organizer. And those parts where they actually invest into building their brand, but they also need to see what is happening throughout the whole experience. And therefore, having tools that are tailored directly for them to protect their brand, to have the visibility, to have the insights that they need to run their own business is extremely important compared to any generic tool, which, as Matthew said, yeah, it may sound great on a paper, but once you start using it and when you implement it in a full scale, very quickly you will see the shortcomings.
And I also think that the people using the information that we're delivering to them need to understand that the data needs to be correct. We see a lot of issues with integrity in the data that so when they can actually see the output of being bothered to fill in forms that are text specific and they can see that the impact on their ability to sell, then the data quality quickly is increased. So that sort of loop is a really important one that is reinforced by text, event tech as opposed to just off-the-shelf tech.
I think you're exactly right. I've used all. I've used event tech, I've used non-event tech, and I've had positives and negatives with it all. I think the crux of it, the easiest thing with event-specific tech, having come from sales, is you straight away have a belief that this piece of software or whatever it is you're using is going to be able to help you deliver the job. And Matt's right. If you work with a piece that you think it delivers 95%, I've mentioned before, you get lazy, you start cutting corners, path of least resistance and that. So having stuff that is joined up, having stuff that can talk to each other and interface with each other is key, because there is more than just the sales. The sales cycle is one part, and it goes beyond that. So you've got to go from that sales cycle to the operational cycle to the marketing cycle. You've got to have, and generally speaking, event-specific tech, they integrate with each other far better as well, because you're able to pull certain data sources that it's harder to from a non one, and also the cost element. If you're trying to develop an instance of non-event tech to get it to work to you, you're going to run into a lot of cost. which is probably a big reason that we still see companies reluctant to implement tech at the moment, is because they've been using the wrong stuff and spending a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, Matt, I think you had a story about that, didn't you? Can you share?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can show
Company
you.
X.
Company X, what we do know is we've worked with some great businesses over the years, and D2I are normally called in when everything's gone kaboom. And normally we can only walk in the front door when the person that's implemented a system for, let's call it a couple of million to be polite, has now left, because then the ego's gone. We can actually say, right, guys, this failed miserably, it's not good for our business model, and then we go in and pick up the pieces and make everything rosy and wonderful. But it's a painful thing, and it's not good to see companies that are investing in what should be, in theory, great platforms for their sales teams, and let it fall over. That's absolute travesty. It's not great.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got about 7-8 minutes left, so I'm just going to go to some of the questions. Can exhibitions afford not to heavily invest in tech for the future?
No.
Are we all in agreement on the panel? Is that a one-word answer?
I just can't see why not. I think there's a cost and there's a fear, and I think the fear comes from a lack of knowledge about what a lot of the tech can actually do, and I think we're really good at, from our perspective, is selling the bells and whistles of our products without actually getting into the nitty-gritty of actually how it's going to benefit your teams, because a lot of the idea with particularly the tech around sales is to make lives easier, which saves time, which ultimately gives people more time back, so they're going to be able to spend more time doing the right things, which is bringing in additional revenue. So no, I don't think you can kind of, it's like anything, if you keep doing the same thing, nothing's going to change. So if you want to grow your show, or you want to grow an event, or you want to launch an event, then it's not going to do it if you just keep following the same process.
Yeah. Is there a danger that tech gets in the way of establishing that personal contact between exhibitors and visitors? Can tech get in the way?
No.
Yes.
I think of the best sales tool that still exists today. It's a telephone. I've never seen a telephone get in the way. It's technology. It used to be face-to-face. Technology always improves, and providing it's used by a very good, competent, confident salesperson, it's never going to get in their way. The only time it gets in the way is normally as an excuse. There is no excuse. The good, great salespeople of the world always find a way, regardless of the technology, if we're honest.
I think we've divided on the panel here.
Well,
Steve.
yeah, I was just going to say the technology by itself can. Technology needs to be wedded to a process and the staff. It needs to be understood and applied correctly. And if not, if it's just layered on, then it can cause issues. So I think we talk about technology a lot, but there is a sort of two sides to this. There's the technology and the implementation. And that's the people, the processes, the teams on site need to be able to understand it, use it, and make best use of it.
Steve?
Yeah, I would say that very close to what Ian mentioned, technology is a tool, right? And when we use the tool to accomplish a goal, then that's perfectly valid use of technology. When we let the technology run, so for example, using a telephone as an example, if you pick up the phone, you call your prospect, you have a conversation, that's still one-to-one interaction. When you delegate it to a chatbot that calls your client and the client figures out that it's a chatbot talking to him, then you probably lost that client.
Yeah, I think we haven't really spoken about chatbots really, but I think chatbots have a time and a place, and perhaps sales, to make that sales lead and to make that sales connection is just not that place. That's my personal opinion. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
People buy from people.
Exactly, which is why we're here. So do you think event tech is a reliable method for increasing sales in the future? I think we've kind of answered that.
Yeah, I think we have. I think it goes back to what Ian said. If you use it correctly, then yeah, I mean that's the whole thing with it. And it's there is a lot of work that still needs to be done, and you start to see it a lot more now. So you start to see. Certainly, I've had experience quite recently getting in contact with a lot of CTOs, a lot of CDOs. So companies are starting to take this seriously in terms of the implementation. Previously, it's been, oh, we'll get that, and there you go, give it to the teams with not really. And the problem is, what then invariably happens, CRM is a prime example, they will start to force it to work the way their other software used to work, and it doesn't do what they wanted it to do. So there's a big implementation piece that has to be done. a big training piece that has to start, be it on the onboarding phase and consistent. So that comes down to us as the suppliers to ensure that we're satisfying that, and we are making sure that our clients are using the products correctly. But it's like anything, if you use it, then of course it will increase the sales.
Yeah. So the top question at the moment, what is the initial touch point where a possible customer is turned into a probable customer?
The first time you speak to them. Surely, you're opening the sales funnel at that point. It cannot be anything else.
Is that because first impressions count?
First impressions do count. Absolutely do they. And let's be honest here. If we're thinking about, this is about strategy as well. So if you think about future-proofing your exhibition business here, you want to make sure, really, all salespeople need to convey confidence in their prospects straight away. If you don't do it within the first 5 to 10 seconds, you're kind of dead in the water. They need to believe in you as a person, the credibility of your event, and the credibility of your company. That's it. It's never changed. It won't ever change in the future. But it's using the event technology and starting to think, well, hang on a minute, how do we help the sales teams do that from that very first interaction? And at the moment, the way sales teams, the way I used to kind of sell, you would be given a media pack with some very kind of blasé information that, if we're a little bit honest here, could be somewhat dubious. And that's
20% year-on-year increase.
Yeah, amazing. You'll have empty halls with tumbleweed going through, and yet we've had a 20% increase. So that's not going to cut it anymore in the future. And the companies that are really going to grow and take market share are the ones that give their sales teams live information that they can actually use and go, right, I'm just not working on the media pack. Actually, tell me what you're looking for. I can find exactly that information. There we go. That's my show. Can we do business? But it does start from the very first touch point.
I think we've got time for just a couple more questions. Which one are we on? Is event tech the only way to increase exhibition revenue?
Well, I would say no. There are multiple different ways, but technology in working in partnership with process is the best way. It's not just about developing passive lead generation services to try and sell on to the exhibitors and to try and drive more and more revenue from their time at the event. But it's also about just getting that right information to the right people at the right time so they can make those decisions. So I think it's a combination of the two.
I would also add that it's important to think about your roadmap, where you are and when you want to be. Looking and considering the technology that you want to implement that needs to be fit for the purpose of what's your ultimate goal, but also where you are. If you are a small event, then you should probably find something which is much faster to implement and deploy, and maybe will be obsolete in a year or two, but at least it will get you going very, very quickly for very, let's say, small costs. And once you grow, you need to plan for the own adaptation, right? As you're growing, you will need a bigger CRM with more features, more data, and so on. So I think this thing also have to be considered, because without that, you can either grow very slow without any technology, or you can completely halt your growth if you implement something too big.
I think also, tech for tech's sake, I think everybody sees that, don't they? They see through that. Your sales teams will see through it, the exhibitors will see through it, your visitors will see through it, and it just causes a bit of attention and probably just won't get used.
There's also a lot of pain in transition from one state to another. So, for example, you have not used the technology for a particular purpose and you're trying to adopt something else. Many times everybody agrees and sees the benefits, but the pain of the transition is so high that no one really wants to make the jump. And that's what we found out can be partially eliminated by training and letting people try things, having kind of hands-on experience, and then eventually people start adopting it more when they actually get the smaller benefits into their day-to-day operation right away.
I think as an industry, we're quite poor when it comes to sales event technology and actually selling that to our own users. I'll give you a good example here. So customer experience apps, that kind of glittery front-end event tech. As organizers, you spend months selling the benefits of that running up to your show and during it. If you walk around this hall, I guarantee you'll see, use the app, use this, use etc. You spend so much energy doing it. But we give up too easily when it comes to sales technology. We kind of put the training in, as Adam rightly said, it's a very big job. But once you've done the training, that's it. Do you do repeat training on that technology? Most people don't. They don't do it. And guess what? The churn in staff, maybe 24 months, 36 months for sales execs, sales managers. So actually, the knowledge base of how to get the best out of that system walks straight out of your door.
Yep.
And we give up too easily. We need to really take it seriously if you want to make serious money.
So knowledge and data is power when it comes to event tech and sales.
It's massive. The question, I say, is event tech the only way to increase exhibition revenue? No. As we keep saying, what it will do is it will take that 50, 60% conversion rate to a 70 potential, maybe facetious, but it will increase the conversion rate. So it's not suddenly going to say, oh, I've put this CRM in, or I've put in an operational tool in, or I'm suddenly getting live data, and wow, everybody now is flocking to me. These exhibitors are flocking to me. They're not coming to you because of that. What's actually happening is you're better fielding their initial concerns, informing the exhibitor, making them feel confident, so your ratios will start to increase. So it will increase exhibition revenues just by your own conversion rates increasing.
Fantastic. So we're out of time now, but I think it's definitely a topic that's hot at the moment. It's on the show floor. Come and visit these guys in their stands, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.